A cold wind whistles through the broken archway as you step into a forgotten chamber deep beneath an abandoned monastery. Your lantern sputters, and you realize it's on its last breath. Heart pounding, you strike a match, and in the sudden flare, time seems to shudder. Shadows leap across walls carved with shifting symbols. One quick flick of flame and a single rune springs into focus, a spiral crowned by a crescent moon, its lines pulsing as if alive. That moment, when darkness folds back and a sliver of light unveils something ancient, is the very heartbeat of esoteric knowledge. It's not about bright sunshine and clear skies. It's about that liminal flicker, when illumination dances at the edge of shadow. Consider the medieval mystic Raymond Lull, who placed a lone oil lamp before himself each night in his art of memory rituals. To onlookers, it was just another lamp. But for Lull, that small flame became a portal into the very architecture of reality. He claimed that by focusing on the lamp's halo, he could summon patterns of thought so profound they seemed to unlock the cosmos itself. Imagine leaning forward, close enough to feel the lamp's heat on your cheek, and watching halos of dust caught in the beam swirl like galaxies in miniature. That same beam, Lull insisted, could map the relationships between ideas, virtues, vices, elements, celestial spheres, organizing them into a living mnemonic tapestry. It sounds fantastical, of course, yet consider, if a solitary flicker can illuminate secret inscriptions on stone, what might the flame of your own consciousness reveal, if you learn to train it? We begin this journey not with lofty dogma or textbook definitions, but with that raw, immediate thrill of discovery. You're not a passive spectator. You're the seeker who dares to light the match in a place where everyone else left their torches behind. In this opening scene, you'll feel the surge of possibility, that a single spark, wielded with intention, can tear the veil between the seen and unseen. But hang on to that sense of wonder, because we're only scratching the surface. That rune on the wall, etched centuries ago, was a clue, a breadcrumb leading to deeper mysteries about the dance of light and shadow in every tradition, from Egypt's sunlit sanctuaries to the secret midnight lodges of European alchemists. What forces carved those symbols? What truths lie hidden in their curves and angles? Later, we'll follow the trail to dusty papyrus scrolls and cracked leather tomes, to decode how ancient initiates taught that darkness is not merely absence, but a fertile ground where potential waits to be born. We'll see how Lull's lamp linked to the Egyptian Ka, the life force that flickers unseen, and how Gnostic scribes in their Nag Hammadi codices whispered of hidden lights dwelling inside the void. But for now, let this single candle do its work, draw you into a space outside ordinary perception, where every breath carries the promise of revelation. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the match's flare. The instant heat, the sulphurous sting in your nostrils, the way the blackness behind you seems to recoil. Feel how your pulse synchronizes with the flame's vibration, steady, alive. Now open your eyes into the glow and know this: you're standing at the threshold where inner alchemy begins. That small lamp is not just an object, it's a metaphor for your own mind. Trained well, it can light up corridors of meaning few have ever walked. Yet be warned, once you step into this mystery, the path will not be simple. Shadows will stretch, truths will twist, and the more you illuminate, the more darkness you'll uncover. That's the paradox at the heart of every genuine esoteric tradition, but it's precisely this tension between the light you wield and the darkness that remains that fuels transformation. So keep your candle lit, but don't let it blind you. Learn to see not only what the flame reveals, but also what the flame conceals. That's where the real work begins. Beneath the scorching sun of ancient Egypt, priests lit braziers at dawn and dusk, casting long shadows across the alabaster walls of Karnak. In those flickering moments they whispered of two forces, K, the spark of life that glowed within every being, and Bay, the wandering spirit that could slip into the night. These weren't just fanciful stories. They were coded lessons about the interplay of presence and absence, of illumination born from darkness. Fast forward to 1945, when local farmers in Upper Egypt cracked open dusty jars near Nag Hammadi and uncovered a treasure trove of Gnostic codices. Inside those leather-bound volumes lay texts that reframed light and dark as companions on an inward journey. One fragment describes the hidden light dwelling in the void, a paradoxical spark that can only be found by plunging into the abyss of unknowing. Imagine monks reading by torchlight, marveling at verses that declare darkness itself to be a doorway, and instantly realizing that everything they thought they knew about evil and ignorance needed rethinking. Meanwhile, across the high plateaus of ancient Persia, Zoroastrian priests devoted themselves to the cosmic struggle of Spenta Mainyu, the holy spirit of light, and Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit of darkness. Their rituals didn't vilify night as mere absence. They saw in it a necessary counterbalance, a mirror that sharpened the radiance of truth. Fire altars burned continuously, not just to repel the dark, but to honor the tension that made light meaningful. Then there were the Hermetic sages, scribbling in Alexandria's great library, who taught that the macrocosm and microcosm are reflections of each other. As above, so below. They believed every starry night sky carried a cipher of inner states, light as consciousness, darkness as the unlit chambers of the psyche waiting to be explored. One apocryphal story even speaks of a Hermetic master who would meditate in a pitch-black cell for days, emerging with visions so brilliant they were said to outshine the sun. Why did so many civilizations fixate on this binary? Because ancient initiates recognized something modern minds often forget. Light without contrast tells you nothing. You need the void to frame the flame. Without darkness, the brightest fire is just white noise. But these teachings were deliberately obscured over time. In the Middle Ages, the Church often branded such dual-path teachings heretical. Gnostic scrolls were hidden or burned, alchemical labs went underground. The language of Ka, Ba, Mainyu, and Hermes was reduced to myths or debunked as superstition. Yet those symbols persisted in coded paintings, in the stained glass of cathedrals, and in the cryptic glosses of Renaissance manuscripts, waiting for seekers to unlock their meaning once more. As we peer into this tapestry of traditions, notice the pattern. Every culture insists that true wisdom arises at the threshold, where light meets darkness. Fire and shadow aren't enemies, they're dance partners. And that dusty cache at Nag Hammadi. It wasn't a random archaeological fluke. It was a cosmic wink reminding us that hidden in the void is the spark of revelation. So here's the question we'll carry forward. What if every time you feel lost in darkness, you're actually standing at the crossroads of a profound initiation? What if the same force that frightens you into hiding is also the key that can unlock your deepest knowing? Hold on to that question, because in the next section we'll break down how alchemists and Kabbalists mapped this journey, not as a battle of good versus evil, but as a spiral weaving through purification, dissolution, and rebirth. And you'll see why calling darkness evil is the simplest mistake of all, and one that keeps us from experiencing the greatest hidden treasure of all. You've seen how ancient seers used fire and shadow as teaching tools, but what if those opposites aren't truly separate at all? In the dim glow of an alchemist's furnace, lead doesn't simply turn to gold. It first blackens, then whitens, then reddens, each stage a necessary step on the path to transformation. This is the mystery encoded in the Emerald Tablet's famous axiom, as above, so below, which tells us that the macrocosm of stars and the microcosm of our soul follow the same spiral journey. Imagine staring into that bubbling crucible, the nigredo or blackening, a murky stew where the old self dissolves. It looks like destruction, but it's really the compost from which something new will sprout. Next comes albedo, the whitening when purer substances separate and float to the surface. like pale lotus petals rising from the mud. Finally, rubedo, the reddening when inner gold blooms and the work is complete. In Kabbalah, a parallel unfolds through the concept of Ayin, the void. On the surface, Ayin is nothingness, a dark blank that seems empty. But dig deeper and you find it's pregnant with possibility, the unmanifest seed of all light. The Zohar whispers that any light without Ayin would be blindingly undifferentiated, an unbroken glare that reveals nothing. Only by moving through the void can the radiance of true wisdom emerge. Consider a mind-bending metaphor. You stand in a pitch-black room, your eyes straining to find a hint of shape. Then someone flips on a lantern, and instantly you can see walls, furniture, even dust motes dancing in the beam. But here's the twist. Without that initial darkness, your eyes never would have learned to pick out the lantern's glow. The darkness tuned your perception, sharpening the very instrument that now sees the room. This paradox runs through every genuine esoteric tradition. The Sufi speaks of the dark night of the soul, a period of utter desolation that precedes union with the divine. Taoism honors wu-wei, non-action, which sometimes looks like doing nothing yet fosters the creative flow of the Tao. Even Zen koans often thrust you into confusion and paradox, so that your mind can break free of linear logic and glimpse reality beyond words. These aren't decorative stories, they're precise maps for inner work. Think of Nigredo as the soul's necessary shredding, facing failures, fears, and false identities until they fragment. Then Albedo teaches discernment. What truly matters rises to the surface. Rubedo is the integration when you carry that sharpened insight back into everyday life. But beware a common pitfall. Many seekers try to chase only the light, chasing bliss, feeling good, seeking angelic visions, without ever doing the messy shadow work first. It's like trying to cook a gourmet meal without washing your ingredients. The result is shallow, unstable, and often backfires because the unexamined darkness will erupt later in surprising ways. On the flip side, some people get stuck in darkness, glorifying suffering as an end in itself. They mistake the Nigredo stage for the final destination and make misery a badge of honor. Neither extreme honors the paradox at the heart of esoteric wisdom. So how do you navigate this spiral without getting lost? Start by embracing both poles consciously. When you feel uplifted, dazzled by insight, ask yourself, what am I ignoring? What's beneath this brightness? And when you're trudging through doubt or pain, remind yourself, this too is part of the path. I am dissolving the old to discover the new. Here's a simple exercise to feel this paradox in your own body. At dawn, sit in quiet meditation and visualize a candle flame. See its warmth, its clarity. Then at dusk, sit again and let your mind rest in darkness. No visualization, just witnessing the blur of night. Notice how your awareness adapts and how each state sharpens your sensitivity to the other. In the next section, we'll dive even deeper into shadow work itself, why light alone can't illuminate every corner of your psyche, and how modern practitioners resurrect Jung's and Fictuld's experiments to dance with their shadow intentionally. But for now, hold this paradox close. Light and darkness aren't enemies, they're co-creators of your inner alchemy. The real magic happens in the tension between them. Having explored the great paradox at the heart of esoteric wisdom, where darkness and light braid together to form the spiral of transformation, you now face the pivotal challenge of turning that outer flame inward. The alchemical stages we examined, from the blackening crucible of Nigredo through the whitening clarity of albedo into the reddening glow of rubedo, teach us that true illumination arises not by fleeing the dark, but by plunging into it. This is the essence of shadow work, a deliberate, compassionate descent into those hidden chambers of your psyche where unacknowledged fears, desires, and memories lie waiting. Carl Jung famously insisted that imagining figures of pure light can never bring genuine enlightenment. Only by making the darkness conscious does real insight emerge. Centuries before Jung, the alchemist therapist Hermann Fictuld devised candlelit rites in which seekers would sit in silence, flame-casting dancing shapes on stone walls, while they called forth the personified voices of guilt, shame, and unspoken longing. In those early sessions, participants found that the figures they invoked were not malevolent invaders, but fragments of the self, crying out for recognition. To ignore them was to leave the work unfinished. To embrace them was to begin the process of integration. Imagine yourself at dusk, seated alone before a simple lamp. The glow warms your face, and as you look into its comforting circle, you realize that your attention, once trained on external symbols and ancient scripts, turns inward to the raw landscape of your own heart. You become aware of tension in your jaw where you habitually swallow anger, faint tremors in your chest when unprocessed grief stirs, and an almost imperceptible tightening in your throat whenever unspoken truths hover on your lips. In that moment, the lamp is no longer a mere object of ritual. It becomes a mirror that reflects the hidden architecture of your inner life. In the hushed space between breath and flame, the shadows cast by the lamp do more than conceal, they invite. They beckon you to notice how certain emotions spring forth when you allow your gaze to soften. You might sense a flicker of fear that you usually bury beneath polite smiles, or a surge of pride that you mask with humility. Naming these sensations, "Here is my anger, here is my longing," puts language to what once lurked out of sight, transforming chaotic impulses into conscious allies on your path. Yet shadow work is also a practice of balance. Just as dwelling too long in the soot of Negredo can leave you stuck in desolation, endlessly gazing at your wounds without gentle uplift, neglecting the nourishing warmth of light can leave you overwhelmed by darkness. After an intense session in the half-light, it can feel healing simply to step into the sun, to feel warmth through your clothes and hear birdsong, reminding yourself that integration requires both descent and ascent. This rhythm of recognizing your shadow and then reaffirming your capacity for joy is what sustains genuine transformation. Dreams, too, serve as a midnight mirror. When you awaken after a night of vivid imagery, a labyrinthine corridor, a crumbling bridge, a persistent, faceless figure, those scenes are not random byproducts of sleep, but intentional communiques from your deeper self. By keeping a journal at your bedside and writing down every color, texture, movement, and emotion, you begin to map a landscape that daylight often obscures. Over time, recurring motifs reveal themselves. The river that floods in your sleep might speak to emotional overwhelm. You resist by day. The endless stairway may point to goals you've been hesitant to climb. Treat these nightly visions as companions, engaging them in dialogue. Why do you appear in this form? What unfinished business are you here to resolve, so that the insights born in darkness can be carried into your waking life? None of this work unfolds in neat bullet points or quick checklists. Instead, it unfolds as a living, evolving conversation between your conscious self and the parts you've long kept apart. There will be moments of discomfort, when buried memories rise unbidden, and moments of strange exhilaration when a long, suppressed desire finally speaks. There may even be days when you question why you embarked on this journey, until you notice how a sudden flash of intuition, a burst of creativity, or a moment of unusual courage emerges precisely because you have honored the full spectrum of your being. As you practice mirror gazing at dusk and dream mapping at dawn, pay attention to how each ritual informs the other. The fear you named in front of the lamp might reappear in your dreams, this time offering a new perspective on an old wound. Conversely, an image that surfaced in sleep may guide your next mirror ritual, revealing fresh layers of meaning in your reflection. This ongoing dialogue weaves light and shadow into a single tapestry, where every thread, bright or dark, contributes to the whole. By dedicating yourself to this dance, you prepare the ground for the next stage of our journey, modern alchemy, where daydreams and nightmares become raw materials for inner power. Just as Leonora Carrington used her nocturnal visions to create paintings that tapped secret wells of creativity, you too will learn to transform the substrates of your psyche into insights that fuel real-world growth. But before we step into that luminous crucible, honor this moment of shadow work as the indispensable foundation beneath it all. The place where raw ore of emotion is purified, where hidden potential finally meets the light of awareness. When you emerge from these practices, you won't simply feel better, you'll feel more complete. And from that place of wholeness, the alchemical fire of modern creativity can burn with balanced intensity. Neither blinding, white nor impenetrable black, but a full-spectrum glow that carries you into deeper realms of discovery. In our next section, we'll explore how to harness daydreams and nightmares as active imagination, turning personal myth into practical magic. Until then, keep your lamp alight at dusk, your journal ready at dawn, and your heart open to the voices that speak when the world sleeps. In a loft studio lit only by early morning haze and the soft glow of fairy lights, surrealist painter Leonora Carrington would awaken before dawn to record her most vivid dreams. She claimed that during the night, her mind opened secret passageways into realms populated by hybrid creatures and, for impossible landscapes, visions she later translated into canvases that still crackle with uncanny life. For Carrington, the border between sleeping and waking was a portal, a modern crucible in which the raw materials of psyche were refined into pure creative gold. Today, that same frontier between daydream and nightmare offers each of us a laboratory for inner transformation. Think of your mind as an alchemical vessel. When you let imagination flow freely, it churns with hidden emotions, buried desires, and unspoken fears. Those images that appear in the half-light of consciousness aren't mere fantasies. They're coded messages from your deeper self, waiting to be decoded. Imagine drifting off on a subway commute. Your eyes close and suddenly you're racing along tracks of molten metal or wandering through a forest where trees whisper secrets. In an unknown tongue, you snap back to reality as the train jolts, heart pounding, palms sweaty, a vivid fragment still echoing in your mind. Rather than dismiss that moment as idle daydreaming, lean into it, trace its contours. Ask, what emotion stirred when I plunged through that dark tunnel? What figure loomed at the forest's edge, and why did it evoke awe or dread? On the flip side lie our nightmares, the raw, unfiltered dramas playing out while we sleep. Our dream of falling might feel like a failed leap of faith. A chase in a labyrinth could signal an unresolved conflict stalking your waking hours. Instead of letting these dreams slip away in the fog of morning, become the alchemist who captures their essence. Keep a notebook by your bed. The moment you awaken, reach out and jot down the fragments, colors, textures, voices, the way your body felt in that impossible scene. Over time, patterns will emerge, threads weaving through multiple dreams, pointing you toward themes stuck in your unconscious. But modern alchemy isn't just about observation. It thrives on transformation. Think of your dream journal as a philosopher's stone. You apply the fire of conscious attention to neglected feelings until they transmute into insight. That creeping sense of unease after a recurring nightmare might reveal a decision you've been avoiding. The strange comfort found in a repeated daydream could illuminate a passion you're afraid to pursue. Yet this work demands balance. Some people rush to interpret every single dream, chasing meaning like a dog after its own tail, only to feel overwhelmed by an avalanche of symbols. Others use their notebooks to indulge in the darkest fears, cultivating a sense of victimhood rather than empowerment. Genuine modern alchemy knows both extremes waste energy. The goal isn't to catalogue every phantasm, nor to wallow in dread, but to harness those visions as tools for courageous self-discovery. In practical terms, you might carve out 10 minutes each morning for reflection. Sit in soft light, reopen that notebook, and read the previous night's entry aloud. Notice which words still resonate, which images prick at your gut. Then speak to them either out loud or in your thoughts, as if they were living allies. You might say, "I see you, cryptic raven in my dream. What message do you carry for me today?" By personifying the symbol, you build a bridge between your rational mind and the hidden currents within you. Another approach borrowed from active imagination is to sketch or paint these dream figures right onto a piece of paper. Imperfect lines, smeared charcoal, wild bursts of color. The goal isn't artistry, it's dialogue. When the inner lion or serpent appears beneath your hand, it stops being a vague premonition and starts to feel like a companion with a message. You can then journal about that companion, where it shows up in your waking life, how it makes you feel, what you might learn from it. These aren't exotic rituals requiring rare ingredients or secret initiations. You need only your own attention, a willingness to play with images, and the courage to feel whatever arises. Over weeks, months, you'll notice that certain themes, empowerment, loss, creativity, fear, return in different guises. This repetition is your soul's way of knocking on the door of your consciousness until you finally answer. And that is the true power of modern alchemy. It turns passive dreamers and anxious worriers into active creators of their own inner landscape. By welcoming both daydreams and nightmares, you gather rich materials for self-understanding. You become the artisan who forges insight from the molten core of your own psyche. But remember, alchemy is ultimately about integration. Insights born in the dream world only blossom when you carry them into your daily life. That bold idea you glimpse in a night vision might guide your next creative project. That shadowy figure you meet in sleep could teach you to set healthier boundaries with people you meet by day. True power arises not from escaping reality, but from weaving the hidden threads of inner experience into the fabric of your ordinary world. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, invite the dream alchemy to begin. Light a small lamp by your bedside, let its glow cradle you, and whisper to yourself, "Show me what I need to see." Then when morning arrives, meet your dreams with curiosity, record them with care, and let their symbols guide you toward untapped wells of creativity and courage. The lantern's glow fades as dawn seeps through the cracks in our moonlit chamber. Yet before you stands one final door, a threshold that won't open for you until you're willing to feel both warmth and chill at once. In Greek myth, Persephone descends into Hades' realm each year, embracing darkness so she can return crowned with spring's light. Her power lies not in choosing one world over the other, but in owning both her roles as queen of the underworld and maiden of renewal. Consider where you stand today. Are you content to wander in broad daylight, basking in the safety of familiar wisdom? Or will you dare to step beyond, into the twilight where light and dark entwine? Behind that threshold awaits a deeper kind of illumination, one forged in the union of opposites, where insight flickers at the very edge of your comfort zone. This journey doesn't require secret rites or hidden initiations. It asks only that you bring curiosity and courage. Perhaps it begins with that single candle, lit not to banish darkness but to reveal its contours. You might revisit your dream journal at midnight, listening for themes that echo your daytime struggles. You could sit with a question that feels too big or too frightening to ask, "What part of me remains unseen?" Then you wait for the answer in the shadows, trusting that illumination will come. Here's a simple practice to bridge this ancient wisdom and your modern life. Choose one daily moment, morning brew, afternoon walk, twilight ritual, and spend it alternating between light and shadow. For 2 minutes, hold your coffee mug in bright sunlight, feeling warmth seep through your fingers. Then step into a dim corner or closet and let your eyes adjust to the gloom. Notice how your senses sharpen, how details emerge that daylight hides. Through this oscillation, you train your awareness to dance between clarity and mystery, cultivating a mind that thrives in both. Still wondering if you're ready? Remember Persephone's leap. Her courage to embrace dissent made her return more radiant than ever. Your own descent, Through shadow work, dream alchemy, and paradoxical insight, will reshape you from the inside out. You won't simply gather knowledge, you'll become alchemists of your own soul, transmuting fear into creativity, confusion into clarity, and fragmentation into wholeness. So here's my invitation. Pick one practice, mirror ritual, dream journaling, light shadow meditation, and try it tonight. Notice what stirs in the dark, what awakens in the light, and how those stirrings guide your next steps. Then share your experience in the comments below. What did you see? What felt alive? What question now calls you forward? This isn't the end of our journey. It's the beginning of an ongoing dialogue between light and darkness inside you. In upcoming episodes, we'll explore how these insights shape relationships, creativity, and purpose, and how the most profound revelations often arrive in the space between opposites. Until then, keep your candle glowing at dusk, let your dreams speak at dawn, and stand ready to walk the edge. True illumination isn't a gift handed down from on high. It's the spark you kindle yourself, forged in the crucible of shadow and flame. Are you ready to light that spark? If you're intrigued, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Next week, we'll venture into the alchemical symbolism hidden in everyday symbols, revealing how ancient codes still guide our modern lives.